There have been lots of great game designers over the years, but some have contributed so much to our hobby, designing new worlds, introducing innovative mechanics, that they really do deserve special mention. And in this video, I'm going to look at 5 of the very best. Before I get stuck into this list, I have to acknowledge that it's inevitably skewed by my own preferences and personal gaming experiences. I may not mention somebody that for you is the greatest designer ever. Please don't see that as a slur on their work. In fact, take the opportunity to tell me all about their achievements in the comments. Okay, with all that said, let's get started. Andy Chambers is a true grandee of wargaming and the first name on my list. Although he's only in his 50s, I imagine him wearing a toga and recording his first rule set on a wax tablet, simply because he's been doing it for so long and has produced so many games. The thing is, he is as busy today as he has ever been. I saw Andy being interviewed about Zone Wars, great game, covered it loads on the channel, about a year ago, and he had to think back to try and remember some of the rules because he had designed another 4 or 5 games since doing Zone Wars. Andy's early games reads like a wish list of 20th century Games Workshop products. Necromunda, Battlefleet Gothic, 2nd edition Space Hulk, Warhammer Fantasy 4th edition, Warhammer 40k 2nd edition, Gorka Morka. I have to stop here or this will just be a video of me reading out a list. For most people, drop the mic, it's been a great career, ride off into the sunset on a Pegasus or something. I'm done. But for Mr. Chambers, when he left Games Workshop, he was only getting started. Starship Troopers was the game that made me fall in love with wargaming. I was lucky enough to win my first tournament playing that very game. It featured a fantastic reaction mechanic that was absolutely perfect for the setting, with bugs bursting up through holes in the ground and the mobile infantry desperately trying to gun them down. They were doomed, of course, but that was half the fun. The synergy between that rule and the theme was genius. Andy tweaked that reaction mechanic for use in Dust Warfare, and it carried through into Dust Tactics, giving you a nice example of just how much influence he has had on the hobby. About 10 years ago, Andy co-authored the rules to Dropfleet Commander with David Lewis, who's in this list later on. Dropfleet is an epic space game with really clever mechanics that make you feel like you're controlling these colossal ships in orbit over a planet. In fact, I discussed these rules in another one of my videos, 5 Fantastic Wargaming Rules. And he also designed Blood Red Skies, a World War II dogfighting game. The miniatures in this game can be level or tilted up or down to simulate their altitude. Again, it's such a clever design because the secret to dogfighting was to get above your enemy and swoop down on them. And Andy came up with a way to show that on the game board without cluttering up with tokens or cards or other paraphernalia. Excellent. I'm going to finish with 3 more games that Andy has recently been involved in writing. Heroes of Might and Magic Battles, Xeogenesis Scalable Miniatures Game, and Conflict 47. Seriously, when does this guy sleep? Just having Andy's name attached to a project is enough to get me enthused about it. His track record is amazing, as is his ability to match mechanics to theme without overcomplicating the rules. Mr. Chambers, I salute you. The next person on my list isn't there because he's created dozens of games, but because he created what is probably my favourite wargaming universe, now populated with several excellent games. In 2012, David Lewis unleashed Dropzone Commander. The archetypal nerd genius, he had slaved away in his parents' basement for years to create the fluff, the rules, and a quite simply stunning range of miniatures. Dropzone Commander feels like a classic RTS computer game mixed with Cthulhu and aliens and cyberpunk and all sorts of other fantastic influences. But at the same time, it's much more than the sum of its parts. It's a really distinct and enjoyable universe. The mechanics allow for really rapid movement and deployment around the board that makes it incredibly exciting to play. The 6 factions in the game have unique aesthetics and play styles, and shadowy objectives that fuel an unfolding narrative which Dave has been working on for many years. You know those games where you look forward to the release of the next book, not just because you want extra toys to play with, but because you want to see how the story is developing. Dave does that really well. In fact, he leaves a trail of breadcrumbs for those who are paying attention to perhaps work out what is going to happen next. It all really helps to pull you into the world and make you care about it. Another good games designer could have written the rules to Dropzone Commander. A very good one could also have written the fluff. But I don't know of another games designer who could also have done all the CAD work needed to design all of these amazing models. Along with Andy Chambers, Dave co-designed Drop Fleet Commander, which took battles up into orbit. Notice that I didn't say space. A feature of Dave's design philosophy is that armies fight over resources and objectives, and that makes complete sense and helps to ground the action in this sci-fi universe in something that feels much more real. Another illustration of what a mad genius Dave is can be seen in the construction of the Avenger. This is a model of a spacecraft from Drop Fleet Commander made in the 10mm scale of Dropzone Commander. That makes it 3 meters long. I was lucky enough to see this model at UK Games Expo a few years ago and to ask Dave about its construction. He spoke with such passion, it was clear how much he loves this universe that he's created, and he made the Avenger because he could. Recently, Dave and the rest of the gang at TT Combat have created 2 new games in this universe, Battlezone Commander and Strike Team Commander. Both of these games will play at 32mm, opening up another area of this fantastic universe. News of another game called Project Artemis, in which giant mechs hunt megafauna across alien worlds, has convinced me that David Lewis will continue to develop this world for years to come. And I will happily keep rolling those dice. Joseph A. McCullough designs games that are simple, streamlined, and full of narrative possibility. It's like somebody giving you a big cauldron and a huge selection of ingredients, and you choose what goes into the pot and how long you cook it for. As somebody who loves to tell stories in their games, his style really appeals to me. Frostgrave is probably the game that really put Joseph's name on the Wargaming map. It's a lovely example of a system that's crammed full of ideas, allowing players to pick and choose and to create their own adventures. The rules of the game will feel very familiar to anyone who's played D&D, as it's really a sort of treasure hunt using a group of sellswords and mages that you've put together. You get to keep them from one mission to another, upgrading their skills and keeping hold of any loot that you've managed to get your pickers and stealers onto. The game is well supported by an official line of miniatures, but Mr. McCullough encourages an old school approach. Grab models from any range you've got, dive into your bits box and kit bash your wizard if you like. It's all good. And that blend of modern streamlined rules and more traditional do-it-yourself modelling characterises his design philosophy. Joe McCullough's games also tend to include random events. These take your games in unexpected directions and introduce new gameplay options. A number of his games can be played solo or cooperatively. A great example of this is Rangers of Shadowdeep. Here, 1 to 4 players create a ranger and a retinue of hangers-on and venture out into the wilderness to hold back the darkness. There's always a mystery to solve with branching storylines, persistent characters, and once again, the influence of role-playing games is really clear. Silver Bayonet offers another great blend of skirmish wargaming with RPG elements. Imagine if one of Bernard Cornwell's Sharp novels had been turned into a TV movie produced by Hammer Horror. Joe hasn't only designed skirmish wargames though. Oathmark is an excellent ranks and flanks affair that offers a great alternative to some better known games. I don't want to get bogged down in rules, but I would like to give you one example of Joe's clever design work. Each unit in Oathmark has an activation number, which represents its discipline and training. These humans have got 5. Each time you want to activate a unit, you roll 2d10, and as long as one dice equals or exceeds their activation number, they'll do as they're told. Fail to do so, and the unit will only get 1 action instead of 2, and they won't be willing to charge into combat. If the unit is led by a hero, you add a dice to their activation roll. If the unit is close to breaking or facing something particularly terrifying, you take a dice away. These simple mechanics are so elegant that they're almost impossible to forget, even in the heat of a battle. And yet they make every movement, every activation a strategic decision. It's great design. It perhaps goes without saying that Oathmark also includes lots of narrative options, including campaign play that lets you conquer different regions that boost your army, weather, random monsters appearing, and loads of other unexpected events. Joe McCullough's games feature great mechanics, facilitate cool stories, and provide players with loads of options. I think it's a fantastic approach to game design. So that's the first half of my list. What do you think of the designers who I've mentioned so far, and who would you like to see in the second part? Let me know in the comments. I hope that you've enjoyed the video. If so, please consider giving it a like or subscribe. I hope to see you again soon. And until then, keep rolling.